All right, Pete, let's start with Leicester City, who have been in the news for not such great things lately. But what is the latest update with their points deduction after it seemed like they were going to get away scot-free?
Yeah, it was a big win for Leicester earlier this week when an independent panel ruled in their favour that the Premier League could not take action against them for breaching PSR rules. Obviously, it was a bit of a loophole found by Leicester's legal team to ensure that they avoided a points deduction, which happened Everton and Nottingham Forest last season as well. So possibly could have been looking at a 7-point deduction if the charge had been upheld. 3 points for breaking the rules and then 1 point per 6.5 million, which the breach was 24.4 million. So massive result for Leicester, a real embarrassing look for the Premier League, and means that they might have to go around and change the wording of their ruling because they don't want this to happen again. It's been a big defeat for the Premier League, and more question marks raised over PSR and FFP, and obviously with so many other cases of PSR in the Premier League in recent years, they need to get the rules right. Otherwise, there could be more situations like this where a loophole could be found and teams could escape any punishment.
For sure. And Paul, as Pete mentioned, Nottingham Forest fans and Everton fans are kind of raging hearing this news of no deduction. Are they right to be angry? Should they be angry with? What's your take on that?
Well, listen, of course they're going to be angry because we're not privy to a lot of information, are we? We only get the information what's fed through the media channels and what we hear. We don't know what goes on at these independent hearings, and there's certain loopholes which clubs will obviously look to exploit. I mean, it must be on the grounds that they come out. We're going to say it must be music to Manchester City fans' ears. With all those 112 charges potentially looming over them, it just shows that there is another way out of this rather than a points deduction. I'm not so sure that the Leicester case matches up to the Man City cases or any of them. I think it's completely different, but there is hope there that there's for fans that have these charges looming over them. But as you say, the Everton fans and Forest fans will feel that they've been very, very harshly treated. But listen, they stayed in the Premier League last year, didn't they? So long as there's no more points deductions, what they suffered last year, the points deductions that they had, it made a really tough season for them. But for Leicester, they've got to use it as a boost. I mean, Sean Dyche used it to galvanise his Everton group when they got the points deducted. Steve Cooper's got to do that now with his Leicester team. Obviously, without the points deduction, and use that as a real boost because, let's be honest, I think everybody was expecting them, ourselves included, to be hit with at least 4 points.
For sure. And Pete, there is rumor of potentially a different points deduction for a different PSR violation. Do you think we'll see that happen, or do you think Leicester actually really may have gotten away with it here?
I don't think they'll get away with it this time. Obviously, they were quite smart in that they moved back from announcing their accounts to 30th of May, or from the 30th of May to the 30th of June, and that meant in that time period they were no longer a Premier League club, and that was the loophole they used to say that because they were no longer a Premier League club, they couldn't be restricted by their rules and everything else. They could be charged again, obviously when the latest accounts have been filed for 2023-24, which was June 30th this year. We'll see what Leicester's numbers are then. If they've recorded losses, they could find themselves under maybe another points deduction. The permitted losses for Leicester, I think, in this new accounting period will be £83 million because obviously last season they were in the Championship rather than 105 million because that's some of the rules for the Premier League. But there's real possibility that Leicester could find themselves in further trouble with PSR. Obviously, this first verdict of the independent panel has been a major result for everybody connected with the club. But if they've been found to be a breach of those permitted losses of 83 million in the latest accounting period, which we'll probably find out around December time, I think, is when these PSR charges are made. We'll find out if Leicester have maybe breached those permitted losses again, and if they do this time, I don't think there's any way they can get out of it this time.
I was going to say, Pete, I know we're talking hypothetically, and you said December's around the time where it'll be heard. Listen, you're a lot more well-versed on this than a lot of us. Is it just Leicester? Are there other clubs? And if so, this is probably a double-edged question. If it's not just Leicester, are there any other clubs? If it is Leicester, is it going to be this season? Are Leicester fans sat here looking, thinking, right, we've got away with one, but actually in our Premier League lifetime this season, we might get hit again? Or is this something that's going to be kicked further down the road?
Probably knowing what happens with the Premier League and PSR, Paul, will probably be kicked down the road as normal. We saw Sheffield United, obviously, they've started this season with a 2-point deduction, so that probably should have come into the ruling last season. Obviously, Leicester will fight their case, as will other clubs if they're potentially going to be charged with PSR breaches. Obviously, those accounts have all been filed by the relevant Premier League members by June 30th. So I'm sure whatever accountants and legal people will be going through that, and the Premier League will do as well. Obviously, we saw a bit of a baking of the books around June when some clubs were helping each other out with a few deals which maybe raised a few eyebrows, and the valuations of players, and obviously there was a loophole there that those clubs had worked out to try and avoid PSR breaches as well. So
these are the accounts that are coming out next. What's just happened this window, that's what we're waiting for. We're waiting for these accounts, waiting to see who's charged, but the likelihood is that the charges and possible points deductions won't be this season, it'll be next season.
I think there's a good possibility, especially if we don't get any charges until December. We know that the clubs will probably appeal it as well, so that'll just drag on the whole process as well. And obviously, we all want these charges, if they are to be given out, and any points deductions to happen at the start of a season, not midway through, because then at least everybody knows where they stand. But again, I don't think it's been a great look for the Premier League with Leicester winning this appeal. They obviously thought they had this case sewn up the Premier League, but there was a loophole found. There was a loophole found from that unofficial transfer window before June 30th when clubs were trading amongst themselves to get over the breaches. So yeah, they just need to get the PSR rules right, and I think they're going to have to be changed pretty quickly.
For sure. And Paul, with or without a points deduction, how do you see Leicester staying in the Premier League just 1 point through the first 3 match days, not playing excellent football at this point?
Listen, 1 point, and they were lucky to get that 1 point. I was at the game. I commentated on the game for PLP. Tottenham were by far the better team. They outplayed Leicester in the first half. If Tottenham would have gone in 3 or 4 up at half time, I don't think anybody could have complained. So that's the only point that they picked up. But listen, they showed a bit of resilience in that game. They showed heart, they showed fight, and they showed battle. I think Oliver Skipp's going to be a really good signing for them. Him alongside Harry Winks in that midfield gives them an opportunity. They were favourites to go down at the start of the season because of these potential points deductions looming over them. I think now, yes, they've only got 1 point after 3 games. What can you read into after 3 games? Well, listen, leagues are won and lost. Teams are relegated on 1 or 2 points. So you have to pick points up throughout the whole season. You can't just say, we're 3 games in now, it's okay, we'll grow into the season. Massively important they start picking up points. I think they've underperformed, apart from in the second half against Tottenham where they were better. Listen, it's going to be a long, hard season. It's going to be a long, hard season for the 3 teams that have been promoted. But it's a huge, huge boost for Leicester and Steve Cooper to not have a points deduction limit over them. It's massive. You can't underestimate that.